Hi everyone, Brenna Cantor here with Nexus Youth and Family Services. This is our September Wellness Workshop, Part 2 on pandemic parenting. The goal of last month's and this month's wellness workshops are to offer strategies to parents to improve the overall emotional well-being of parents and children and reduce stress in the home. We have a lot going on in the world right now, and we're all experiencing kind of the turmoil differently. It's all impacting us differently depending on our circumstances, on our age, and these strategies really are just to help support you and your family in the home. So as I talked about last month, parent-child interaction therapy is a specialized program that's designed for young children ages 3 to 7 that are experiencing behavioral or emotional difficulties, and it's to support the parents in learning how to get new skills and interacting. So PCIT is in the moment coaching with parents to teach them new skills to manage those difficult behaviors and increase the positive ones. It improves behavior and therefore reduces the parenting stress that you might feel. So this is a program that Nexus offers, and so these workshops are intended to give you just a snippet of those skills that you can work on implementing in your home. So since we last talked in August, I know school has started, which is probably only increasing some of that stress in the home. So a lot of parenting challenges during COVID have led to burnout, increased behavioral challenges, increased stress, fear, anxiety, frustrations, and it is impacting mental health and wellness. The education piece is so stressful, and it's important to be compassionate for yourself and for your children because this is really hard on everybody, and it's just important to kind of keep that in mind and just know you are not alone in this. So I'm just going to do a quick recap about what we talked about in the last wellness workshop in August. And if you haven't had a chance to watch it, I encourage you to go back onto our YouTube page or our Facebook page and find that August wellness workshop for part 1 of this series and give that a watch and then come back. But I'm going to review quick. So review of the pride skills. That's what we talked about last time. The pride stands for praising, reflecting, imitating, describing, and enjoyment. So for those child-directed interactions, you want to keep those things in mind as we talk about the skills we're going to talk about today. So praising appropriate behaviors, reflecting appropriate speech, imitating appropriate play, describing appropriate behavior, and enjoying yourselves and having fun. One of the things that I will talk about all of the time, whether you see me in person or on these workshops, parents are models for their children. And so utilizing these skills and the skills we're going to talk about today promote positive child behaviors. It improves compliance when you ask them to do things. And above all else, you're modeling appropriate behavior. You're modeling the way that you want them to behave, not just with you, but with their siblings, with their friends, with their peers, with teachers. And those are really important aspects, and it's important to remember the power you have as a parent, that you are a model for your children. So parent-directed interactions, the goal of these skills that we're going to talk about is to improve compliance and giving effective commands. So the word to remember it is be direct, which stands for some things here that we're going to go over. So be specific with your commands. We're going to talk about these individually and what they mean and why we're doing them and some examples. But being specific with your commands, every command positively stated, developmentally appropriate, individual rather than compound, respectful and polite. Remember, we're models for our kids. Essential commands only, carefully timed explanations, and tone of voice neutral. So we're going to talk about each of those things and why we're going to do them and why it's important and why it will work for your children. Okay, so be specific with your commands. This means you want to make your commands specific rather than vague. You want them to be direct, not in question form, and it's important to say exactly what you need and exactly what your expectations are. So providing a specific command will likely result in compliance. So for example, rather than saying, behave in the store, you want to give them ideas of what you're wanting to see. So you could try things like, please keep your hands to yourself, please hold on to the shopping cart, please stand right next to me. The other thing I see a lot with the specific commands is if you have a defiant child and you say, can you clean the table up, or go, can you please clean your room, right? Making a command in that question form gives your child an opportunity to say no. Like, do you want to pick up your room now? No, right? So being specific with your commands is important in that aspect too. I see that all the time using the questions to give commands, and it doesn't work. So being specific, if you want them to clean their room, please clean your room. And you can be more specific even of what you want to see, like please put your clothes in the laundry basket, please make your bed, things like that. Please put your toys away. We'll talk more about that too. So every command positively stated. That's the next skill we're going to work on. So you're going to avoid using words like no, don't, stop, quit, or not. Again, when you're thinking about defiant children or kids that have a hard time complying, those types of words to some children might cause them to actually respond negatively and do exactly what you asked them not to. So providing a command that tells your child what you want them to do rather than what you don't want them to do. So for example, many children enjoy jumping on the couch or jumping on the bed, or, you know, running by a pool or running down the hallway, or, you know, putting their hands on siblings. So for those types of things, oftentimes your response as a parent is, quit it, stop doing that, stop jumping on the bed, don't run down the hall. So if you switch that in your brain to actually give a command that's telling your child what to do rather than what not to do. So please sit on the couch, put your feet on the ground, please walk down the hallway, please keep your hands to yourself, things like that. So as opposed to stop it, right? We're going to switch it up. Next up, we're talking about making commands that are developmentally appropriate. Super important to give commands that your child is able to understand and follow. Children can understand and do more as they get older, which we know that makes sense. So expectations for younger children and older children should match their abilities and their physical abilities and their ability to understand what you're asking of them. So certain commands might be too difficult for younger children. For example, like a 3-year-old might have a hard time making a bed, but a 7-year-old should be able to complete that task pretty easily. So just keep in mind those developmental marks and what will work for your child. This one is so important, individual rather than compound. So many times I hear, you know, clean your room and then do this and then do this and then do this. Instructions should be given one at a time rather than stringing them together. A lot of children have a hard time remembering more than 1 or 2 commands, and they often only really remember and follow through with the last thing you said to them. For example, the first command for cleaning up the room might be, please put your Legos in the box. And then you're going to praise that compliance before you give the second command, which could be, now please put your clothes in the dirty hamper, praise, and you're in specific praise, right? So we're kind of going back to those skills we talked about last time. And then you can please finish by putting the pillow back on the bed, and so on. But it's important to give those statements one at a time and make them really specific, like we talked about. Guess what I'm going to say? Parents are models for their children. So respectful and polite, starting most instructions with the word please, saying thank you, giving that praise. You know, if they do what you ask them, thank them for listening quickly, right? It's not necessarily like, thank you for making your bed. That's great. But if your child typically dawdles, for instance, right, like drags their feet, doing everything that you are trying to get them to do, when they do something quickly, praise them for doing it quickly. Say, thank you. You did that so fast. I really appreciate it. Saying, thank you for listening if your child tends to be flighty and not listen to the things that you're saying. So those specific praises are really important, but saying please, it provides an example of good manners, models appropriate social skills, and it also increases the likelihood that your child will be compliant with what you're saying. I know as parents, it's really hard. We want to give commands, ask your children to do things, but also keep in mind, like, picking your battles, especially right now. Kids are really overwhelmed with school and the online stuff and the stressors that are coming along with that. So be mindful of the commands that you're giving and try to give those essential commands only. So because some children often fail to comply with a command, that's all they're hearing. Parents are typically end up spending more time giving commands than anything else. When your child hears too many commands, they're more likely to tune them out. They just get overloaded. So saving the commands for times when it's important for your child to comply, when it's a safety issue, things like that. I know I talked about saying, you're not using no, don't, stop, quit, or not. And so that's the other thing. If you use those words when they matter, like when you really need to use them, like if your child's going to run into the street, you're not going to say, oh, wait, please don't do that, right? Like, you are going to yell, stop. Safety first, right? But on a day-to-day basis, when you're thinking of giving commands, it's really important to keep these concepts in mind. So carefully timed explanations. Children often require a reason or a rationale. This is where we get a lot of, because I said so, right? Am I right? Yeah. So giving the reason before the command can help in reducing your child's attempts to negotiate or delay. So for example, you might say, we're going to the store. There's your rationale. Please put on your shoes, right? Sometimes along with this, giving your child transition points. So in 3 minutes, I need you to put on your shoes because we're going to go to the store, right? So kind of giving them some time to think about it before you're giving the direct command. It's time to eat lunch, please come to the table. And with that transition point, lunch will be ready in 5 minutes, please get ready to come to the table. Some of those transition times. So when you say it's time to eat lunch, it's already in their head. They've already been thinking about it. And last but not least, for the Be Direct skills, the T stands for tone of voice neutral. So parents often say they have to raise their voice to get their children to do what they want them to do. And repeatedly giving commands in that loud, stern voice can be stressful and frustrating and upsetting to everybody involved. So work on giving commands in a neutral, matter-of-fact manner and avoid those angry, frustrated, or pleading tones. Being predictable and consistent. This is always important for children, but right now, with your children knowing what to expect from you, that will help calm them down, whether it's a routine at home for their school, whatever it is, the predictability and consistency is key. So when you're thinking about those pride skills that we talked about in August, and then these skills that we're talking about today, if you are practicing those skills and you start implementing them, that equals predictability and consistency. Not only in the way that you are talking to your child, but the way that you're disciplining, the way that you're interacting, the way that you're praising, all of those things. A lot of times we go for the negative, and kids don't always get praised for the things that they do right or the things that they do well. They get that feedback when they've done something that's frustrating or upsetting. So command, compliance, praise. So again, I go back to that praise piece of being consistent. Thank you for doing your homework. Thank you for listening. Thank you for getting that done quickly. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for keeping your hands to yourself. Specific command equals compliance. Then you praise them for it. And the more that you praise those specific behaviors, the reason I stress specific is because you're telling your child what you want to see. So if you're telling them what you want to see, you're likely to see more of it because they like being praised, right? Like that feels good to all of us. So after you give a command and your child complies, follow up with that specific praise. Consistency is key. It teaches your child that your responses are predictable. And when kids know what they're supposed to do, what's expected, everyone's calmer, everyone behaves appropriately, and everyone responds appropriately. And then when the child misbehaves, it's important to have those specific strategies for handling that behavior that are also consistent. So clear expectations. Creating house rules is a really good way to set up those expectations, and it can be done as a family, or you as the parent can implement it and say what those expectations are. So house rules are those standing rules and expectations about behavior, whether it's aggressive, destructive, impulsive. The goal is to create those standing rules about the expectations in the home and implementing a logical consequence when those rules are broken. For example, there's a timeout sequence used in PCIT, parent-child interaction therapy, that really offers the child some control of you broke this rule, so you're going to go on a timeout. Making it very specific to the time. And then after the timeout period has happened, if the issue, for example, is sharing, at the end of the timeout period, you can say, are you ready to share with your sister? The child says no, they can stay in the timeout a little bit longer, and you'll revisit that again. Are you ready to share with your sister? But when they say yes, you're going to focus on those positive behaviors. You're going to focus on, that's a great choice. Thank you for choosing to share with your sister. Kids at school would really like it when you share with them as well, right? You're going to focus on that positive behavior and not the negative behavior. Loss of privileges, whether that's loss of dessert, whether that's loss of video game time or TV time. I stress the idea of logical consequences because sometimes I hear, a child does something and then they're going to lose something for a month. That's not always reasonable, and it kind of takes the motivation away from kids. So make sure logical consequences are being implemented and they know what the consequences are. So, if there's this house rule, if you break this house rule, this is the consequence. So those expectations are clear and present for everybody in the house. Consistency and making a plan. It's important to follow through with these things no matter where you are, whether you are in the grocery store. I know it can be really hard to implement a timeout in a grocery store, but the consistency is key and those clear expectations. So making a plan before you leave the house of explaining those rules. We are going to go to the store and I would like you to keep your hand on the cart and keep your hands to yourself, right? Not go down the aisle touching all the things, right? But you're going to state that in a positive way and keep those expectations clear and what the rules and the consequences, what the consequences would be if those rules are broken, whether you're at a friend's house, whether you're in the grocery store, whatever it is. But having a plan and having those rules and expectations set, that's super important. All right, so I've included some resources here. Love and Logic on YouTube is an excellent resource. They have a ton of videos on power struggles over homework, sibling rivalry, helping kids cope with crisis. There are so many options and they're great videos, great resources for you as a parent. I mentioned this already, but parent-child interaction therapy, if you want to learn more about these skills, one-on-one coaching, call me and we can get you set up. Our services are free And we offer parent-child interaction therapy here at Nexus. So for you and your child to come in and get that one-on-one support and coaching if you want more of this. Findyourboards.org. It's a great resource to support parents in having those conversations about emotional and mental wellness with kids, starting the conversation at a developmentally appropriate pace. And last but not least, we have parenting education courses here at Nexus, and we have some upcoming opportunities. Our main class just recently ended, but we have some upcoming one-day parenting classes based on age range. So we have Circle of Security, which is 0 to 5 on September 10th, Growing Together, which is 6 to 12 years old, September 15th. And for those teenagers, we have a class on September 17th, and we have another series starting in October that will be on Thursdays, I believe. So if you're interested in the parenting classes, call Emma Sweat. I've listed her phone number here, and my contact information will be on the next page if you are interested in parent-child interaction therapy. All right, everybody, here is my contact information. Thank you so much for watching. We have a lot of resources on our YouTube channel. Like I said, if you haven't watched our August video, go back and give it a watch also. And we'll see you next month. And as always, if there's anything that you are wanting to see in these videos, tell us. We want feedback from you. We want to make sure we are giving you what's relevant for you and how we can support. So give us a call if you need some support, and we look forward to talking to you. See you next time.